There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died. Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. He was Bill Bailey in the original West End production of Cats, joining in the 90s. So welcome, Damien Delaney, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Good to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I think, Bill Bailey's an interesting character because he's been renamed, but I also, this was the run of Cats in the West End that went for 20 plus years. So
yeah.
I know you joined kind of midway through, but I'd love to hear what, I always ask everyone, was it the 1998 movie that got you kind of into Cats, but you predate that. So I would love to hear kind of like where your history of Cats was before you were cast in the show.
I'm originally from Ireland, so I'm from Cork in the south of Ireland. I saw the very first UK tour in 1989, which came to Dublin. So I was 14 then when I saw the show. And I think I was hooked on it after that. I think I broke the cassette cord in the cassette I had of it from playing it too much. And then I went to college in London when I was 18. And in my second year of college, I auditioned for the show. And the feedback was they were interested, but they wanted me to finish out my training. So throughout my second year, I still carried on auditioning for the show because they would do cast changes every 6 months. Not full cast changes, just maybe one or two people may leave. And then in the summer of my second year, I auditioned for Gillian Lynn for another one of her shows, which is basically a show called Pickwick, which is doing a run for Christmas in Manchester Opera House, and was cast in that. But then I had to pull out because I dislocated my knee about 2 weeks before. And this is the end of 1995. I then auditioned for the show one more time at the beginning of 96 after I gotten over my knee injury, and then I was cast in the show as Bill Bailey. Originally, they thought I was maybe going to be a swing first, but then I was offered the chap as Bill Bailey. Yeah.
So take me back to 14-year-old you.
Yeah.
When you saw the tour, how much of the I've always thought that kids, everything goes over their head as a kids, and it's just cats and entertaining. Adults, you probably get it, and at that point, you're kind of reading between the lines. What about 14-year-old you? How much of like the innuendos and some of the darker parts of the show, like how much of that did you pick up on when you saw it?
Maybe the innuendo probably went a little bit over my head. I think because I started dancing maybe 2 years previous, so I think I was more taken aback by how brilliant the dancing was and the singing, etc. A lot of people that were in that company of the first time I saw the show were then in it with me when I joined the show in London. So, for instance, the woman who played Isabella, she is from Ballerina on the Cats video.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're a lot, and so you mentioned about the 1998. So they made that video when I was still in the show. So some of the cast members from my show were in that video. So Aristophanes plays Bill Bailey, and they had ex-cast members. They'd send people over from Broadway to be in that video as well. So yeah, it was a very, very special time.
So you were basically in college, in university. You were told, hey, we want you, but you got to finish. And then you had an injury and all kinds of stuff. So between when you did that first audition to when you actually went on the first time as Bill Bailey, how long was that?
I think I auditioned for the show over a whole period of a whole year, getting called back, because when they would cast, they would obviously ask everyone if they were interested in leaving or not. And sometimes they didn't know who was going to go. So they would keep bringing me back depending on what roles I was maybe right for. So yeah, it was probably over the course of a year, and I started rehearsals in February 1996, and then we opened in April 1996.
Okay.
So it feels like a lifetime ago.
And you said that about every 6 months they kind of bring new people in.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
In London, you could only stay with the show for after 2 years. You'd have to leave. I know it's different in New York, but they would either offer a year contract or 6 months. Yeah.
Okay, so you basically, everyone on that show had a time limit. You can only do it for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so when you join, you're
Yeah.
midway-ish in the run. I don't think at that point you probably didn't know it was midway, but it's been going on
Yeah.
for years at this point.
Yeah.
What is the introduction to you as a new cast member? Like, how do you get taught the show? Because like a lot of people I've talked to are a tour or the Broadway revival, where it's like they're kind of coming and they're starting it from zero, and you're coming into this like well-established production. So how did they kind of train you for that particular role?
Well, I didn't join by myself. There was, I think I mentioned earlier, there were probably around 7 or 8 people from that UK tour that I had seen. So there was maybe about 12 of us that joined the show at that time. And there's the woman called Chrissie Cartwright, who was the associate on Broadway recently. She put us into the show. So I think on the first day we sat down and we had the whole story about cats, and we were given 3 words for our characters. And then we started to learn the show, starting from the opening and work the way. Actually, no, that's a lie. We learned the Jellicle ball first.
Yeah. Okay.
Because then sometimes at the end of a long day, they would just go, right, we're going to do the Jellicle ball from the beginning to end. When you're really tired, you start to build your stamina up. So yeah.
Yeah, because that's a long and exhausting piece.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember much of that? You were told the story. I've heard so many times that Chrissie Cartwright's like given the story, and like you get the lore, and I've been trying to piece it together as a fan. But what do you remember about that experience, and like what were you told as if you were going to explain it to somebody watching it for the first time?
I don't remember. It's terrible, isn't it? I don't really remember the ins and outs of it. I think it feels such a long time ago. It was basically that we were a tribe. She talks about each of the different characters and their relationships to each other. And you were kind of given, I suppose, an over arc of the show. I don't remember the A to B to C to D, which is not helping you, I guess.
Well, and I think that's where it's like it's the Cat's Bible and the lore of it is kind of preserved throughout the years, but has also changed a little bit production to production.
Yeah.
Do you remember your 3 words?
I was trying to think of this earlier. Actually, thought you might ask me this. I want to say it was playful, young, and curious.
Okay.
I think they may have changed, to be honest. Yeah.
And I think they changed them for Tumble Brutus, because I was able to find Tumble Brutus's words, but I wasn't able to find Bill Bailey's words.
Yeah.
And so I had chaotic, imprudent, and funny for Tumble Brutus.
Yeah, because I don't tumble, but the guy who came in to play Carbucks, he did tumble, so they swapped that round.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the reaction was. Like, I find this period a little bit fascinating in the sense that like there's no social media. It's kind of a unique show to begin with. So what was the fan reaction like in the 90s when you're doing this? Like, what was it? Were there people traveling in, or was it like the super fans?
Yeah, I mean, there were, it was the show to be in. I suppose it still is the show to be in as a dancer. And it was still the hot ticket in London back in the, all the way through the 80s and the 90s. It was huge. It was, we still, when I joined the show, that was 15 years in, it was still playing to packed houses every single week. I'm not sure if you've seen the picture of the stage at the New London where the theatre was, because there's a revolve. So when you sat, if you're in the stalls, at the back of the stalls, you're sat at the beginning, looking at the back of the set, and during the overture, the set revolves when the cats come out and do flashing eyes. That's the only version they have that's got the revolve, and that revolve is still there. Actually, they use it in development at the moment.
Wow! So it basically spins its way in, and that's when you do your green eyes. So were you there, or were there people still in the audience during that point?
People are in the audience, and as the set starts to revolve, you either come from upstairs in the circle, or you come out from different parts through the set, and then go to your place.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about Bill Bailey. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about what, you were told. I mean, I know you said your three words, but how did you play your character into the story?
I really took on board him being, because he's a kitten, being really young and playful, and I suppose impressionable. He would play around a lot with Carbuckety, and would, if there were trouble, or maybe during any of the McCavity scares, or when Grisabella came on, he would more than likely either go to Skimbleshanks or to Jenny Elliot to be looked after. He was just having a lot of fun. As you know, we did a lot of improvisation and stuff during our original rehearsals, crawling around and just getting used to how cats move and stuff like that. And I think it was important to then integrate that within the show as well. And I think the more you get used to being on stage with people, I think you then allow the character to grow, I suppose, organically with different people throughout the show.
Completely.
Yeah.
So I with Tumble Brutus and Bill Bailey and some of the other kittens, I've always kind of wondered. I made a case for almost everybody at why I still think they're more worthy than Grisabella. But did you, like, when you're in the show and you're playing, do you actually even think you have a chance to be the Jellicle choice, or are you just kind of happy to be at the ball?
I think because you're a kitten, I think you're happy to be at the ball because you look up to the older cats, I guess. And I suppose I suppose, being Bill Bailey, you're not, I suppose, one of the central players who's offering up each of the numbers I suppose is an offer up and their chance to showcase their talent for, to be chosen. And as Bill Bailey, apart from dancing throughout the show, you don't have an actual number. But I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you were told that, and I know you don't remember all of it, but when you're told the kind of the Bible of cats, I've always kind of interpreted it as it's like everyone wants to be the choice, and some of the cats know that they aren't realistic, but they still kind of want to be the choice, and so it's kind of interesting to hear from some of the characters that are less likely to be the choice, if that's how you play it, or if it's more of just like, I was never even consideration. I'm just there to have a good time. I think, like, some of the tuggers feel like I'm just there to kind of
I think from my point of view, I was definitely there to have a good time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're just there to enjoy the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And hoping that maybe in years to come, when I get old, that maybe then I would then be able to put myself forward to have that chance to be reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Carbuckety, but what other cats did you have kind of relationships with?
We had Electra and etc., who were the other kind of, I suppose, kittens, as well as Victoria. Mainly Carbuckety, Jenny Any Dots, Jelly Lorum, Skimbleshanks, Koikapat and Tantamal would scare the living daylights out of me, as well as Cassandra. And Alonzo was just always very aloof towards kittens, just didn't get us.
Okay, that's interesting. So the twins and Cassandra are kind of terrifying. I mean, I think they're a scary part of the show once you really understand.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I very first saw the show, I didn't really kind of zone into that amount of detail. I mean, Gillian's work is just so genius and clever. It wasn't until I'd gone back and seen it properly in London that after a few times I really connected, because I was able to watch maybe somebody the whole way through the show and see how the characters develop and see the narrative. But yeah, those three are, especially Koikapat and Tantamal, it's great.
Yeah, I've interviewed a bunch of people who've been Tantamal and the twins in general and Cassandra, and everyone's always like, look, if you happen to know to look for me, or you happen to catch us, and be in for a treat during the show, because they're going to cue stuff that you didn't realize, and it's not something that I knew anything about the times I saw the show. Yeah,
we had an amazing. They were actually their husband and wife, Samantha Biddle from Robbie Yield. They were our Koikapat and Tantamal, and they'd done it on that tour that I mentioned earlier. But they were absolutely amazing. They were so in sync and so together. It was like watching one person move is amazing.
Awesome. That's so cool. I want to switch gears and do a little bit of rapid fire. So I'd love to hear, if you could play any cat at any moment, you can forget whether it's male, female, or if it's something that you think you could physically do or skilled to do. Like, which character would you want to just play for one day?
Demeter.
Demeter. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit more of why.
I think I'm at that age now where I've probably had, I've not had a troubled past, but there've been moments where, I could probably bring some of that to her anxiety that she has throughout the show. And also she's quite sassy. I definitely think I could be on board with that.
Yeah, that's the dark part of the show that no one told me, that now that you do some digging, it's like, oh, okay. But it's also, I think, one of the best songs with her.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Who are your favorite and least favorite cats?
I'm definitely Munger Jerry. I understudied him as well, so I got to play him a few times. Who else? Jenny Any Dots, Demeter, Bomb, be my favourites. My least favourite? Oh, I'm not sure if I have any, to be honest. My least favourite? I don't think I have any.
Oh, you've got to have somebody.
Oh, God. Maybe... that's hard. Maybe Cassandra?
So let me ask it a different way. If you are, as Bill Bailey, which cat is bugging you the most?
Oh, probably Cassandra, and actually probably Corkypat and Tantamile, because I'm so young in that sense that I don't understand them.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So they're scaring you still.
Yeah.
What about your favorite song from the show?
Macavity.
Yeah, that's mine too. It's the one that I think is the most interesting.
Definitely.
Okay, and so this is kind of a more fun one, but if you look at the cats personality-wise, which cat do you think was probably living their best life in the 90s when you were on stage? Which, who would live in that era and that time frame best?
Definitely Tugger.
Tugger, just rocking out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tugger
second to that, probably Bomb Ballerina.
Yeah, so Tugger seems to fit like every era. It seems like it's like, okay, look, I can put him in the 70s or 80s, 90s. I think Bomb is the one where, for me, I mean, just in the U.S., it's I kind of thought of I could see Bomb wearing the neon and all that stuff, and just kind of jazzercising and doing all the fun things.
Yeah.
So I love it. Okay, so my kind of $1 million question is, I've argued at length about Grisabella not being the right Jellicle choice. So I would love to hear from you. If you're old Deuteronomy and you're making the decision, are you picking Grisabella or are you choosing somebody else if you got to rewrite the ending?
I think I would choose Gus.
Okay, give me your Gus defense.
He's been around a long time, as has Grisabella, and I think he has earned his stripes, from his world of being, I suppose, an actor in the previous day, which you get to see at the top of Act 2 when he goes into the aria and stuff like that. And I think if how in the UK the Queen gives out order of service and she knights people and she medals, I think he deserves it for his work towards acting in his younger days.
Yeah, I think Gus is such a worthy choice, and I think a lot of the arguments for Grisabella you could make just as easily for Gus.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think is the reason that Grisabella is chosen every night? Besides, obviously, someone wrote it that way.
I think it allows the audience to, I suppose, feel empathy towards the character. So trying to have that arc and narrative towards the show where you start off where the tribe, I suppose, hates her and the outcast her, to then we see in Act 2 where they accept her and they obviously take her on the journey. I think, she's probably at that age where she, I suppose, needs to be reborn, I guess.
Yeah, it's so interesting because everything you just said, if you change that to he, I could have thought you were talking about Gus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about your experience, and making any non-Grisabella argument is a good argument in my book.
Yeah.
How can we stay in touch? What are you working on? What's your social media?
I don't perform anymore now. I teach. So I teach at the university, teach at the conservatoire. I've worked there for over 13 years. And actually, I work with Drew Varley, who's the Mungo Jerry on the video. We work together. He teaches as well with me. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. On what is my handle? I should know that. It's Damien D13.
Amazing. And we'll link that too, so for everyone can see and stay in touch. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share about your experience and talk about Bill Bailey and give the non-Grisabella argument, which is what this whole podcast is about.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming out to record with me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. Cheers.
And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.